Hi, everybody, and welcome to class. I'd love to say this week, but it's been a couple weeks since I've done a class. I've been very busy. I helped lead a retreat in Toronto, and then I've just been flying a lot. So I'm just here in Hong Kong in my room. I was in London as well as in Japan. So I've just been very, very, very busy and fairly tired. So as always, sometimes there's these long gaps in relation to the recordings or classes, but I always value quality over quantity in the sense that I don't want to record stuff when I'm like totally jet lagged or overtired or just do crappy material because I certainly don't want to waste your time and I don't want to waste my own time as well. So I'd rather hold out a little bit longer between sessions if I can find a time where I just feel sort of a little bit more rested and up for doing sort of a decent class. So we'll see. Now that I've set it up, maybe this class will really suck. I don't know, but there you go. So we're continuing on with Rob Preece's book and Buddhist Tantra and psychology. But we're almost done, actually. We've only got about another 2 or 3 classes, including this one, as we just finished up the book and then move into our presentation of Kriya Tantra over the next couple months or so. Okay, so let's get started just with the Heart Sutra here. Homage, perfection, wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir on Mass Vulture's Mount, together the great assembly of monks and nuns and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Superior Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of the great being, was looking perfectly the past profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also the 5 aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through Power Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Superior Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage the prize of profound perfection wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Superior Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage the prize of profound perfection wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequent, looking perfectly and correctly also the 5 aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is none other than form is none other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, this all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics, do not produce and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement, no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, also up to no element of no consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation of path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on in the divine perfection wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in 3 times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection, wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal and unequaled mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. Mantra of perfection, wisdom is proclaimed, Tayantam Gata Samgati Bodhisoha. Shariputra, bodhisattva, great being, should train the profound perfection wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration, said his Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good O son of the lineage, it is like that, since it's like that just as you have revealed. In that way, the profound perfection wisdom should be practiced, and Tathagata will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Superior Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, and the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. So let's just take a moment to have a quick meditation here. We can visualize that we're in a wide open space surrounded by all sentient beings of the 6 realms, with our mother on our left, father on our right, the people we love and cherish behind us as support, with people we have issues with or don't like in front of us as objects of our prayers. And moving on from there, people from all over the world, all different backgrounds, and the people in places of great conflict or suffering right now, wars and genocides and sort of environmental collapse and so forth. They're just very, very hard lives. We can feel that they're here with us in front, and that we're opening our hearts and praying for them. every living being, sort of natural being from the animal realm, whether it be insects, mammals, fish, or birds, and so forth. Spirit beings from the spirit world, celestial beings, gods and demigods, or goddesses, so that's sort of divine beings that way, that are still within samsara, and countless beings of lower rebirth in the hell realms and hungry ghost realms. So we're all here together as sort of like a big family meditating together. And in the sky above us and before us, visualize beautiful Conquer Vajradhara, sort of the heart of our tantric practice of Guru Yoga here. This is Buddha Shakyamuni's higher angelic form, and he'll be the synthesis of the three jewels and all holy beings just in the sky. In lotus position, beautiful sapphire blue body wearing a crown and beautiful jewelry and ornaments and silks. And he's in lotus position with his arms crossed, holding a bell in his left hand and Vajra or diamond scepter in his right. And we can visualize a small hum, H-U-M letter, or seed syllable at his heart, a blue one. Now, taking refuge in him is the embodiment of the three jewels, all of our teachers and all light beings and Buddhas. I and all sentient beings, till we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, till we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, till we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Generating bodhicitta here, through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. And through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. So just setting our intention, whatever we do today, meditate and study here together, may everything we do of body, speech, and mind be a cause towards the liberation and enlightenment of all beings without exception. Now, offering the 7 limb practice, prostrations or signs of respect, to Vajradhara, opening your heart, making offerings, confession and rejoicing. So again, standing up and taking responsibility for our lives, all of our bad habits and so forth that we want to change and heal from, as well as rejoicing in our good habits and virtues and those of others. Now asking all holy light beings to stay with us each moment from lifetime to lifetime, and to continue to teach us the Dharma, particularly the 3 principal paths of renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom realizing emptiness. And then dedicating all this again for the awakening of all beings. And now just offering the mandala here at our heart, beautiful purified universe of all beautiful things. The ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers, the great mountain, 4 lands, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land, and offer thus may all beings enjoy such Buddha realms or such pure lands. We send forth this jewel of mandala to you, precious gurus. Om Edam Guru Rana Mandala Kamyutiyami. Sing that here. Okay, please grant us your blessings here, Conquer Vajradhara, so we can just feel that he becomes a small, little, beautiful blue diamond or a sapphire, like a shooting star. Descends to the crown of our head, and then slowly enters our crown chakra and sort of descends, just like I say, like a falling leaf, very gently and slowly, and into our heart, where he dissolves, and all the wisdom, compassion, and power, all the blessings of the 3 jewels and all of our gurus' wisdom and realizations go directly into us. And we can just feel the guidance and wisdom and love and protection of all holy beings and all of our teachers as we study here today. Okay. So this one here, the chapter is called "Living in the Mandala." So it's I just realized when I do these classes, just like I know it's pretty elementary and so forth. What I'm doing, it like in a sense that whenever I do these kind of summaries and chats, I don't feel that I'm a lot of times doing the book justice. So I really, Rob Preece is a very, very good writer, and he's quite eloquent. So, I'm really not doing the material all that good of justice, presenting it in this way. So I do really recommend that you do read the book, get the book, and read it, because it's very, very beautiful. And these last three chapters are sort of he's just sort of bringing everything to sort of a climax and resolving everything, bringing everything together at the end of the book. On the mandala, and sort of pure appearance, or sort of living in the sacred land, so to speak, the pure land. And then the last one on creative transformation. These are in a lot of ways the real hard essence of what he's trying to present in this book. So it's so beautiful. I really, really recommend that you read it yourself. But anyway, going into this, he says Jung, and if you see, like he said, Jung presents the idea of the mandala, which is the universal image of wholeness, and the fundamental image of the self in sort of a wider sense, not just an ego self-identity, but sort of a bigger spiritual sense of identity or personality. Jung, in a lot of ways, as you know, was one of the first Western teachers and writers and educators to really look at the idea of a mandala, and has commented a lot. And, probably the stuff now, as we know, is a little bit dated in terms of what he had access to and what he learned. Obviously, he didn't study with the actual teachers of these wisdom traditions of Asia. But at the time, he was the only person doing this, and certainly blazed a path for us in the West, in particular for therapists and psychologists and philosophers, to look at this stuff. So it's, if you wanted to see, like, even his commentary on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Bodhidharma, the liberations we're hearing in the Bardo, which of course now when you read it, you're like, oh my God, but he wrote that in the 1920s. You have to give him a bit of a break. But he's trying to sort of present this idea, his idea of archetypes and mandalas, and it's a beautiful idea from a Western psychological point of view. I think it's very, very helpful. So again, the mandala is a universal image of wholeness and the fundamental image of sort of our spiritual personhood or self. In Tibetan, mandala is kyo core. So core is always the idea of a wheel or circle here, which in a sense, the paraphrase of that, or transliteration, is center surround. Kyo, I guess, being, I actually don't know which word is which there, but sort of a center or sort of wheel, and what's encompassing it or surrounding it there. So it's the idea of a self-contained environment with a focus or pivot which acts as the central axis, a realm within a circle that has nature of a whole or complete system without an outside interference or relationship. It's this idea of absolute wholeness and oneness. So both for Jung and for Tibetan Buddhism, and even traditions like in Hinduism and so forth, this is seen as a symbol of transformation. So in Buddhist Tantra in particular, the mandala of appearances arise or manifest from the clear light mind, or most fundamental mind. And we want to think that this most fundamental mind of Dharmakaya, which is sort of the ultimate nature of the deity, manifests this sacred universe of a mandala at the Sambhogakaya, or beatific or angel level, so to speak, of the deity or of the Buddha, and then that manifests from that into all different sort of emanations from the Nirmanakaya, or emanation, or sort of avatar body, right? So yes, the mandala of appearances arise or manifest with clear light mind. Whereas we are unaware that our relative world arises in this way, we see, rather we as normal people, we see our world as inherently existent, solid, and sort of independent of our own mind. So the idea of a mandala shows the relative world to be fluid, transitory, illusory, like a dream, a mirage, or a rainbow. So the idea of mandala in particular is the idea of a process of unfolding, not just a structure of the psyche. We recognize the mandala represents the entire experience arising moment by moment, and to develop a state of wholeness at each moment. We center ourselves, yet within a continued process of transformation or recreation, or sort of creation, recreation, so to speak. So what I always like to say is basically you get this idea that the mandala is like sort of an expression of the mind from moment to moment, sort of deploying a world, so to speak. So you see this even in Western philosophy in psychology course. Like if you look at the idea in existentialism, our self projects create sort of an existential, quote unquote, life world that you end up living in. Of course, this is the term life world you get from the great phenomenologist Edmund Husserl, but it's also the idea that you see in, for instance, Hegel's work in the Phenomenology on chapter 4, desire, where he says that desire is a negativity. So you think, well, negativity, does that mean kind of mean or negative mind? But quite the opposite, negativity in the sense, just like the Buddhist concept of discrimination, you know what something is by knowing it, that it's not everything else. In other words, there's something becomes negativity, you can translate as determination. Something becomes determinate or showing itself as something because this somethingness of something is what's determinate against the backdrop of irrelevance or indeterminacy, right? So it's the idea of, in Gestalt therapy, they talk about a figure ground, something that's relevant that I notice against the backdrop of everything else that's irrelevant or that I don't notice because it's not important to me at that moment. So why is this important? It's because, starting with Hegel, moving into phenomenology, and existentialism, great thinkers like Heidegger and Sartre and Merleau-Ponty and stuff like that, we end up creating a world through our self-projects where the world ends up becoming a mirror telling me who I am, right? So this is what we say that, like Hegel says, desire is self-reflection. And when we start thinking about this, we can call it reflective self-reflection. But the world itself is a symbolic universe telling me who I am at each moment and what am I doing. So for instance, I'm recording a class on Buddhism, Tantra, and Western psychology here now. This is telling me who I am. If someone says, who are you right now? I'm recording this class, but it's also, I'm here in Hong Kong recording this class. What's interesting is that what's important is what's appearing me right now. For instance, I'm here on a layover. I don't live in Hong Kong. There's all this stuff here, even in my room right now, that I'm not paying attention to. There's all stuff outside that is irrelevant to me, for instance, because it's I don't live here. I don't, it's not part of my life or this or that. So what you see, what's happening is that there's a whole world, a whole symbolic world that I can think and talk about that's both creating me and the objects that I'm relating to at this moment, or tools that I'm using. For instance, the computer, my phone, my little notebook with all my notes here and so forth. The couch that I'm sitting on here in my hotel room, this and that. So I always like to tell people that when you start talking about mandalas, in deities manifesting universes, it always seems so weird. It's like magic or whatever, because we have this very diluted idea that the world is independent of our mind, something material existing before us, always existing independent of us without being related to us, and that we're dropped into it kind of like a marble into a can, interacting with different objects that are there as material and changing things as well. Right? So that's what the real world is that, we study in science. And of course, that's not even science. Do they believe that anymore? It's sort of more of a folk psychology, materialist, secularist folk psychology. So we compare that to sort of deity yoga and mandalas, and they seem kind of like, wow, like fantastic and like I said, like magic or almost maybe superstitious. But like I said, when you look at philosophy over the last 200 years, starting with sort of, again, with Hegel and a lot of neo-Kantians moving into phenomenology and what they call non-cognitivism right now in theories of embodiment, you see what the world and mind are is an interrelated whole in the symbolic universe that's being set up. So really, this is what I always like to say is that, it's hard for you to understand that you can be a deity manifesting a mandala, beautiful, purified Buddha universe, but you're doing the same thing in just a very materialistic, deluded, false, fictitious way with myself as this ego that I take to be real in a world that I take to be independent of myself. But even, like I say, existentially, phenomenologically, just being a quote-unquote normal, mundane person, I'm manifesting an ego, I'm creating a self, and I'm creating a world that I lived in. It's sort of like Both of these things arise together through our day-to-day self projects or worldly involvements with how we use tools and language and so forth. So I think that that's always important to say, is we just have to see what kind of mandala are we generating? What universe, symbolic universe, are we generating? Are we generating a diluted one, creating our suffering, or a purified one leading to our liberation? So Jung also talks about the idea of homeostasis, this idea that if we experience trauma or suffering, the psyche or the body will always adjust to find the healthiest state in any situation. When we're unhealthy, we find the healthiest state we can, and often require a manifestation of illness as an expression of wholeness. So Mandala, in this sense, Jung will say, is also something homeostatic, sort of the point of wholeness in any situation. So that's another way of looking at it. It's like Merleau-Ponty has this idea that the body, or your sense of embodiment in this symbolic universe we're creating existentially, is the idea of what you're doing with your self-project. He calls it maximal grip. Prise maximale, it's your way of coping. And it's not coping like therapeutically coping, like, oh, I'm depressed, but somehow I'll manage at work today. But this idea of coping or ordering or structuring your environment to be able to carry out your tasks and your projects. So, for instance, how am I coping right now? I'm sitting on the couch in a certain way to focus on the computer. I'm always finding sort of an equilibrium between my body and the world, and they're creating a whole right here. So you can see, if you want to read an amazing book, it's Merleau-Ponty's Phenomenology of Perception, or of course that short, amazing essay he did called I and Mind, L'Œil et l'Esprit, which is a really, really beautiful, very eloquent. He wrote that just before he died in the early 1960s. But Jung also says that really, from a suffering point of view, we also have a way of coping. Our sort of maximal grip on the world is finding some degree of wholeness at each moment to be able to keep going, to be able to process our suffering, to be able to keep living, so to speak. This, William Reich talked about this a little bit. You can get this also with, the idea of bioenergetics and so forth. It's really interesting. So in a lot of ways, where we get into trouble here from a Buddhist point of view is our disposition to grasp or constrict around our experience, our self-grasping, where we want to cling to things that we like and push away things that we don't like. This, of course, is just from a classic Buddhist point of view, creates all of our suffering and ill health. So even what Jung is saying is that suffering in a lot of ways is a message for us to let go. And health is a sort of a process of allowing, a process of unfolding or wholeness. We maintain presence and clarity without sort of within our experience. And this is this idea, almost a Jungian idea of Mahamudra. So really what Jung was saying is that really, when you think about it, like if any moment we're generating our own mandala in our world, even when we're suffering, the very fact that we can create this sense of wholeness, even operate in a suffering way, shows that there's a bridge to health there. Like in a lot of ways, the mandala of suffering also contains a mandala of wholeness or health, with sort of our ability to heal ourselves or find proper sanity or integration and individuation in our life. So this is the idea, of course, even in Buddhism, the idea of the mandala being a Mahamudra, in the sense that if we're creating the universe at each moment, this, in a lot of ways, if we can actually sort of set back and not have this clinging or grasping to it, we're getting closer to the sort of creative source of all this reality in the first place. This allows us to get past, again, our self-grasping and our self-cherishing mind that brings in so much suffering. So within the self-grasping and in self-cherishing minds is this process of mandala or unfolding that, when we're able to let go a little bit, reveals this deeper sense of the emptiness of the mind, the creative potential and creative unfolding of the mind, which is Mahamudra, right? So this is the significance of the mandala, to change our lives, allow the unfolding of this process within a sense of openness and trust. We give space for this arising and not block it or constrict it and then cause ourselves to suffer. So the mandala is a homeostasis within each of us. It enables us to remain sane and relatively healthy in bad conditions. Mandala is a process of constant creative manifestation, and this is symbolized by the deity expression of the clear light mind. So I like this. He says, our lives will change as clarity in our nature deepens and we become aware of the process of the mandala as it unfolds. We open up and allow life to unfold, have more and more trust in the divine process. We are personally responsible for individual awareness and openness for whatever happens at this point. So he says the deity is central to the symbolic and sacred nature of the mandala. It is the focus and identity of the deity that recenters our awareness in the heart of the mandala's creative vitality. So this is the idea of self-generation. So more to say is that when we're doing deity yoga, it's what really allows us to tap into this sort of healthy homeostasis, this process of unfolding of creativity, of regaining our own freedom and individuation, but also our sense of fundamental sanity and fundamental health. So what we do with the idea of a deity is that, of course, the deity that we're working with in Tantra is the same as its mandala, is the same as the symbolic sacred universe that it lives in, is the same as its body, as its primordial seed syllable vibration, and the same as its mantra. All of those things go together as one. So the mantra of the deity you can sum up into one seed syllable or primal vibration. This also is an expression of the deity's vibe, so to speak. It's mind, its body, and of course the sort of sacred universe or sort of little castle, sacred castle that it lives in pure sacred land that it lives in. It's an expression, everything being an expression of the enlightened mind of this deity. So we always say that the deity has pure body and pure mind, which is inseparable from bliss and emptiness. It has pure actions, and it has pure enjoyments, right? So this, all these things are pure and an expression of the purity or emptiness of the mind itself. And again, as it's sort of creatively unfolding or manifesting here. So if we sort of associate and really ourselves with our divine center, sort of archetypally expressed as a deity and sort of its sacred castle, its sacred land, like I said, it allows us to find this sacred healing within ourselves. And in a lot of ways, it allows us to tap into a quote-unquote Buddha nature, the emptiness of our mind itself, as well as the sheer openness of sheer awareness itself. These two things going together, the conventional nature of the mind, who we are being a sheer openness, which is just empty awareness, and its ultimate nature, which is being emptiness. So the Dharmakaya enlightened mind of Buddhas is just a mind that is seeing emptiness directly all the time, an omniscient mind, clear mind without defilements, experiencing emptiness. And at the same time, through its bodhicitta and loving, caring, compassionate heart, wanting to bring all sentient beings that same state of wakefulness and liberation, it's manifesting beautiful bodies and angels and helpers everywhere to educate sentient beings, help them self-educate or self-liberate themselves to that same state. So the deity or mandala both are the symbol of innate potential for complete transformation. The mandala acts as a seed or a catalyst for this sense of wholeness, of course, when we're working with it. So the mind is clear, luminous, and empty, becomes the basis of individual experiences of Dharmakaya, the grounded being for which all appearances emerge and dissolve. And of course, this is really seen. So I like this where he ends up saying that we see our own body and mind as the play of our own Dharmakaya, sort of our Buddha nature or the enlightened mind of the Buddhas. And this itself is an expression of the two truths of form and emptiness. And this shows the world to be a vibrant, vital, and magical place, everything being an expression of the two truths. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So that's why Tantra allows us to get these Buddhist realizations so quickly, is the entire art of Tantra as an art of expression, as an art of creativity, is about playing with, understanding, manifesting, working with, understanding, embodying the two truths, conventional reality and ultimate reality, form and emptiness, emptiness is form, which is why we can see everything as a divine expression, beautiful and joyful, right? And seeing everything as pure and sacred. And that's an amazing thing. And again, discovering sort of your own sort of freedom and your own sort of bodhicitta, ultimate and conventional bodhicitta, sort of this deep, heartfelt compassion for all sentient beings, as well as the ultimate truth of emptiness of the whole process. So that's how we sort of bring Mandala and Mahamudra into this our own personal practice of Tantra. Okay, so I think that's about it. I'm just trying to see if any. Yeah, you can just, like I said, as a one thing, you see that mandala at the end of it is really an expression of the two truths, and in particular of our Buddha nature. So it's, yes, it's a complete practice that way. Okay, so thanks very much. We'll just dedicate this merit. My blessings of all holy beings, the truth of karma, power of a pure spirit intention, may all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled, and we'll see you next time.